Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, National Sales Manager for Bona Adhesives.
I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training.
How are you, Rob?
Oh, I'm doing real good. Training's back in action, baby. Just wrapped one up yesterday with the guys from Pyramid Floors down in New Jersey. Excellent. It was good to get back, and holidays are over and hit the ground running, man.
Yep, right on. I've been hearing that, so glad to see it. Also, the Nashville RTC is coming along really well.
Oh, that's going to be the apple of our eye, huh?
Yep. That's going to be exciting, man. That's when I can get down to myself a few times.
Yeah.
So I will grace you with my presence there, Rob.
Oh, that's
exciting for you.
That's a small bell for that one.
There you go. All right. Hey, Rob, listen, I was reading a survey about painters. And you say, well, what the hell's that got to do with our industry? I thought it was interesting, the overlap. And I thought it was a very good survey. And I think our listeners would get something out of this because it does. I've always said it's interesting when trades cross over, and I think the survey was pretty cool. I sent it to you and I thought maybe we would talk about that, right?
Yeah, because I did read through the article. Probably one of the few things I've ever read that you actually sent me. Out of all the stuff that you send, this one I'll give this one a go.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But paintings and coatings, they're a lot of the information that I talk about when I get into the dew point process and how dew points will affect floor coatings and things like that. That information, I spoke directly to a guy from the American Painting Association. He was their tech guy, and man, him and I talked for hours about this stuff and really how close the two industries, really are as far as weather, paint, weather, finish, that kind of thing. So, yeah, when I saw this survey and everything, I thought, oh, this would be a good, great topic.
Wow, talked to him for a couple hours, huh? Sorry, I missed it.
Oh yeah, just two tech guys talking about dew points and relative humidity and floor temperature. Yeah, you would have thought the only guy who was missing was Howard Brickman.
Yeah. Well, listen, what I like about this survey, it's really it's for just a business person working in the trades. And the first question does not apply to hardwood floor contractors at all. But I thought it was very interesting, and I bet everybody would never guess the answer to this. And the first question that was asked is, why exactly do homeowners decide to hire a painter? And if you think about that, why would homeowners decide to hire a professional painter? What's the number one answer?
Everybody right now, please play the Jeopardy theme song in your head.
Yeah.
Or that Final Jeopardy theme song.
Yeah.
Because when I read that, it just cracked me up, and I'll tell you why. Go ahead, Wayne. Why?
The number one answer is I couldn't reach the areas that need to be painted. Now, that clearly has nothing to do with hardwood floors. I will grant you that. But I thought that was interesting, and why, what even professional painters would think and versus what the reality is. So it sometimes tells you how well you know your customers or you don't.
The funny part of when I read that was years and years ago. My father-in-law said, I'm thinking of painting the house, his house, the inside of his house. And I said, well, hell, me and the kids, we'll paint it for you. We'll do it. We'll help you. More hands make easier work, that kind of thing, right? Or rising tide raises the dock, something like that. So I'm thinking this is an easy job. It's a raised ranch, no problem. Okay. But it's a raised ranch with vaulted ceilings. And that's what Bum said to me. He goes, how are we going to get up there? And it was the funniest. It was like Keystone Cops. Okay. We're building stuff. And that was the big question, is how are we going to get up there? It's like a 20-foot ceiling or something. It was huge because it's like I said, it's a vaulted ceiling, no attic or anything. And it was comical. And when I read that's the number one reasons people hire painters, I was like, yep, Absolutely. Definitely. Been there, done that.
So we're not going to talk about painting. We're not going to go down that path really at all, but I will tell you my one painting story. When I first got into doing floors, and the first place I started really was I was doing apartment buildings for this guy that owned like 7 or 8 apartment buildings in the Oakland and San Francisco Bay Area. Some not so nice, some really not so nice, and some really high-end apartments. And the guy loved the way we did the floors. And so he said, hey, would you also want to paint these places also? So I don't have to hire 2 different people. And and I thought, all right, I could do that. Rob, I hated it within 10 minutes of it. I did not want to do it. And I talked to my brother, my youngest brother, into helping me. And keep in mind now, we're 20 years old. 20 years old? Probably about 20, 21 years old. And he's probably 18. And so I talked him into doing it. So we got in an argument. And I said something, I can't remember what I said, but he threw a fork at me. Okay. Rob, the fork stuck in my thigh. I mean, you know how it stuck in my thigh when it landed.
He couldn't have done that with 100 tries.
No, and thank God he didn't. But yeah, so yeah, that's my experience painting. My one and only professional paint job. All right, so let's see. Let's go down and do some things that this survey figured out. Homeowners who solicited just one quote for their project totaled 35% of those surveyed in 2021. 46 received 2 or more quotes. So one thing I get out of this when I hear that is that you really want your quotes to stand out from everybody else, right?
I was really surprised on that 1/3 of the people getting a quote from somebody just got 1 quote.
Yeah.
And then I really started to think about it. Is like, well, how many of those quotes that you when you and I were out there doing it, how many of those quotes were a referral? So, I think if it a referral, but I was even surprised to see that in print that, yep, 1 quote.
Yeah. And we'll talk about referrals too in this survey. But now, so listen to this. I'm going to make a statement here that the painter with the lowest price will win my business. How many people, what percentage of people you think that was the top answer?
That was another one and it shouldn't have shocked me either.
Yeah.
Because this is what we preach, right?
Yep.
We've had people say into the show that Rob sounds greedy sometimes when he's talking about his money. Well, 2/3 of the people surveyed, 2/3 said price was not the issue. The low price was not why they chose. That was awesome.
Yep. 63% of the survey respondents disagreed with that statement. Painter with the lowest price gets my business.
That's amazing.
It is, and it's encouraging to hear. And it talks about that, and it kind of makes you just understand how important value is in separating yourself from the next guy, and not being afraid to be, to charge for your services, right? Not thinking that you have to be the lowest guy. Referrals from family or friends or others remain consistently the top means by which a homeowner found out about the painters they hired, coming in at 49%. So 49% of the people they hired were off referrals, people that they trusted, right? I think this gets more interesting as we go along because it kind of goes against what you might think about social media and stuff like that, right?
That was kind of an eye opener too.
Yep. Repeat business drove 17% of the painter hires, while referrals from contractors and other trades accounted for 16% of the hires. I'm going to read that again because I think that's important. 17% of painter hires, while referrals from contractors and other trades accounted for 16% of the hires. What that tells you is something that my brother has always told me, is that if you're working with high-end guys on the job, you want to give everybody your business card, all the other trades guys, and you want to collect theirs. right? You want to, because guys that are doing like high-end work, like painters, for instance, the really high-end painters, he's going to be in high-end homes, right? And getting a referral from another tradesman that works in high-end homes is gold. So it tells you how important it is to network.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I've always told the story of the guy who did our roof. He's just a local guy, local roofer, carpentry work, things like that. But everybody loves him. So him and I used to get each other tons of different work. But people liked our work, people liked his work, so it was just a match made in heaven. So absolutely, when you're networking with the right guy, the right companies, and that's another way that you're not racing to the bottom with that price too.
You start traveling in different circles. And the interesting thing about that is it's amazing how easier your life gets, because when you're not having to nickel and dime and worry about, oh, I can't charge that much because this guy blah blah blah. Now you're in where you can charge money where you're more comfortable doing the job. There's more room there if issues come up, and money is less of a problem, right? The quality of the job is more important. And also, when we first started out doing floors, I told you we were working those apartment buildings, right? For this guy, they're all 350 square feet apartment buildings or 500 square feet, and they were cut up as all get out, right? And then we're also starting out, so we're working like in the flats of Oakland, not up in the hills where all the money was. And so the subfloors were in more disrepair, and the situation going in was not desirable sometimes, and you made less money because you had all that was going on. When I started hanging around with people with more money and different quality of houses and whatever, there's more money there, right? You can't squeeze blood from a turnip, as they say. And so yeah, man, you would think that maybe there's more pressure. Listen, pressure is a privilege. It's the way I look at it. And I'll take the opportunity every day to get my swings at the bat. So yeah.
Pressure is a privilege.
That's exactly right.
Is that a Highlander, or do you hear that from somebody else?
I don't know if I have ever heard that from anybody, but that's the way I look at it.
As soon as you said that you start traveling in different circles, I thought you were going to go a completely different route. Yeah. I thought you were going to, when you kind of separated yourself from the rest of the guys, becoming a corporate stooge. I mean, the adhesives sales manager for adhesives. When you said more money, better people, different, that's where I thought you were going, is, your little corporate stooge club there.
Yeah. I still hang around with you, and my other friends aren't around.
It is nice to see, like you said, when you said, hey, once the training center's done, I just might grace you guys with showing up. So
the rule with you and I, if I'm around other managers, you just don't come around and talk to me.
Don't look directly in the eye. Yeah. I know. I remember all the rules.
Don't make eye contact.
No eye contact.
But when it's just me and you, we can talk like old friends. But you just can't cross the line.
It's still Mr. Highlander, but that's all right. I get it.
Absolutely.
I mean, corporate stooge, floor of the year. You really. Yeah. Last year was a big year for you. This could be a tough year for you.
To follow up on that last year?
To follow up on last year, I mean, you had a lot of good stuff last year, man.
Yeah, but like I just said, pressure is a privilege. It's a long year. All right.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to go back to that for a second. Mm-hmm. Is that what I got to talk to your team? Is that what you've got all them believing?
No, I don't know if I've ever told them that, but I've always said a few things in life, Rob. And one of them is this: I ain't never made any money off a poor man. You know what I mean? People back in the day used to complain about yuppies that come into the neighborhoods and whatever, but they're paying the bills, right? So
rising tide.
Yeah. So that's the way I look at it. If we're, in this, lucky enough to be in this position, in this industry, I think that speaks for itself. All right. So, but the last thing we just said was 16 or 17% drove drove the business, the referrals. It tells you how important your reputation is and responsiveness is, the quoting process, the whole 9 yards, and how much that you can separate yourself just right there alone. And today, Rob, we see it all the time. It's harder and harder to find, real professionals in a lot of industries. You know what I mean? And what a pleasure it is when you see them. You want to not only support them, do business with them, but you want to be an advocate for them. I met a kid the other day. He's 19 years old. He was the nicest, politest kid that I've been around a long time, man. And you want nothing but for success for a guy like that, right? So it's the same with the business. You know what I mean? If you meet someone who's just over the top professional in every way, I mean, what is that worth? You stop thinking about the price real quick, right?
Yeah, that was that one part of the survey. 4.2 stars out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
When they were asking the question, what was that? And that was their biggest one, was response time, reputation, and the quality of the products.
Yeah. Yep.
4.2 out of 5 stars. That's just about everything.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, that responsiveness, I might have blown that off 6 months ago, said, everybody gets back to people. We wanted to have the house steam cleaned. 2 guys, still nobody's got back to me. And I started that back in November. Pauline said, geez, I think we should get the chimney done. We've been living in this house for, 30 years. Maybe we should have the chimney cleaned. I've called 2 chimney guys, called and sent emails. One guy, I thought he was a buddy of mine. We coached hockey together, or I coached his son in hockey. Everything seemed good. He's kind of in the same town. I haven't heard anything from anybody. Nothing.
Is this a guy that you maybe should have made eye contact with too?
I don't think he was better than me. I thought we were on the same plane,
And no response.
Nothing. Multiple calls. Pauline had mentioned that, and I kind of blamed her. I go, I think everybody knows you're tough on contractors, and maybe the word's out. It's got to be you, not me. I mean, especially the chimney guy. I mean, I let that guy's kid play. He got a lot of ice time, so it wasn't something like, I would have never called the guy but no, I was very surprised. So talk about response time and price. If I get somebody to call me back and come, it looks like they're going to get the job.
If in this day and age how hard it is for someone to respond to you and be that over the top professional, and you're that guy, what is that? That tells you right there that you can really raise your prices.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it is such a pleasure when you find a gym like this. You don't care about the price anymore, man. You're glad to know him, to have him in the house, and to refer him. So I mean, it's just. And on the flip side of that, and I've had this, we've all had this happen where a guy comes in the house to do some work, and he's just miserable, or he's kind of a smart aleck, or he's kind of, one day, I travel a lot, obviously, and one day, Judy had to have the heater guy at the house when I was gone, right? So they had to go in the basement. This is a really old house. So while the guy was down in the basement, my wife went down there with him to show her where everything was at and whatever. And it's not like a finished basement, right? And it's dark down there, and it's kind of eerie because it's an older house. He asked my wife while he was down there, "Do you live alone?" And then he said, doesn't scare you being down here like this? I mean, what the hell kind of thing to say to a lady when you're on an estimate? That was like game over, dude. You're done. You know what I mean? What a stupid thing to say. So
it does amaze me sometimes the things that you hear. We had a heater guy, same thing. Same thing. We had a heater guy come in, and we've been doing business with this company for a long time, and something went wrong with the heater. They send the repair guy over. He's an older guy. He's like my age, and all of a sudden, this guy just starts ranting about the politics and his politics. And, I know we don't talk politics and religion and stuff in the show, and there's a reason,
Yeah.
right? There's a reason for it. In the professional situation, I was just shocked
Yeah.
that this guy was just so over the top. Like, there's no flags. I don't have bumper stickers. I don't do the political signs. There's none of that would give him the, hey, it's okay to
Yeah.
go with this fan. Well, number one, the guy did not get a tip. Pauline, anybody comes to do some work here, Pauline, you're getting a $20 tip. You will get a tip as long as, all you gotta do is do the job and, don't insult her, and you're in.
Yeah.
So when I saw this guy got no tip, I was like, oh, this guy really crossed the line.
Yeah.
Then she picks up the phone and says, next time we get a service call, do not send him. And they're like, oh, what happened? This and that. She's like, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Just you don't need to send him again.
Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't cost a dime. You don't gain anything. You know what I mean? It just makes no sense. And I did an insurance job one time, and it was in a hallway doing a repair. A water heater went or whatever. When I got there, at the same time, the water heater guy showed up. Right. So we're both in this little small hallway. Now we can't work like this, right? And he was late. I came in on time, and this guy was way late for being there. He was supposed to be there hours ago. So she said, listen, he's scheduled to be here, so he's going to be here. You're going to have to come back. He goes, well, I can't come back. My boss, blah, blah, whatever. So he said, do you mind if I use your phone? She goes, sure. So he went in to use her phone. She disappeared. Next thing I know, she is screaming at this guy. She came in there and she goes, you call me a crazy dingbat. You get out of here and don't you ever come back. She picked up the phone and listened to his conversation with the boss on the other phone. And he must have said, hey, this crazy dingbat.
Oh,
not good. So, but to our point, I mean, just the act of being an over top professional is worth money. So just over the top professional. I mean, it takes you no extra time, and it is worth a lot of money, more now today than it ever has been.
I said to Bum, maybe 6 months after COVID really started, ramping up, and so I said, how are you doing your estimates and everything? How's that going? I mean, this is when back when we're 6 months in, like May of 2020, everybody was paranoid, right? Nobody really knew. I mean, knew it was bad, but just didn't have a lot of good information. So I said, how are you doing your estimates? How's that go? And he's like, I pull up, I tell them that I'm on my way. And then when I pull into the driveway, I call them and tell them I'm there. I get out, he goes, I have my windows down. I get out, I show them that I'm putting my mask on. I'm using hand sanitizer. I put gloves on. He approaches the house. And then when he goes out, he's got this whole thing that he was doing, which, to your point, what you just said of being over the top professional. Well, for somebody like Pauline, like if we have somebody come in, like we had a heater guy about 6 or 8 months ago, and the guy comes to the door and Pauline goes, do you mind putting a mask on? He goes, oh, no problem. He runs out, puts the mask on. But Bum was like what I thought was over the top, right? But like you said, and we're talking about responsiveness and reputation and everything, man, that over the top that he was during the COVID, his COVID protocol, it worked miracles for him.
Well, it's now more urgent than ever. No matter what people think about the mask, the no mask, the double mask, whatever, who cares? I don't care. But now, some people are very, very have staunch beliefs on either side of this. So I think you just have to make that clear right up front. And that's another thing. It's your house, your rules. And my opinion is your opinion. Do you want me to wear the mask? I mean, I'm more than happy to. If you don't want to, it's, you know what I mean? Now, I'll clarify that with you also, the contractor, have your beliefs, right? And you have to, you have to honor those as well. So,
Well, that's funny. That's how we've been doing our trainings for the last, 6 or 8 months. Trainings that we do at the Bona RTC, we're still following the COVID protocol and masks and distancing, and we disinfect the place every night. But that's our house, so that's like you said, our house, our rules. When we're doing things at distributorships or other, we kind of go by what their rules are. I'll still wear a mask, but it's funny because whether you're a masker or not a masker, I think we're at the point now where most people respect the opinion either way, rather than, with 2 years of working during this, I still haven't had anybody complain one way or the other about masking or no masking. And if we ask them to mask up, everybody's very polite and does it, and we move on.
I was at the airport the other day, and I was going through the the checkout line or whatever, to get to the terminal or whatever. And I give him my driver's license and I gave him my ticket, right? And he asked to, pull the mask down so he can see your face, right? So he goes, pull the mask down. He's an old, real old guy. I pull the mask down. He goes, oh God, put that back up.
I think I look better with a mask. I really do.
I'd wear it
I
forever.
look better with a mask.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So just real quick here. Before the COVID thing, before the mask, and before all this stuff, I knocked on a lady's door for an estimate. She opened the door, and Rob, the wafting smell of smoke would knock out anybody. I mean, it was like this lady, and she had a cigarette in her hand, and she was a real old lady, wrinkled, really old lady. But what came to the door also was a pug dog. And I looked down at the pug dog, and its tongue was out, right? It was the driest tongue I've ever seen on a four-legged creature. And his eyes were yellow, right? And as I'm talking to her, she said, I rescued this dog.
From what?
Yeah, that's what I thought. She goes, he was on the street somewhere, and I brought him in, and I rescued him. And I looked at that dog, and I thought, that dog
has got to be the most unlucky rescue dog.
Yes.
And especially you being the rescuer of animals.
Yes. Yeah.
This had to be a killer for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you take the job just so you could steal the dog? Is that where the story's going? The dog got lost in your truck?
I think we did do the job, but yeah, I didn't take the dog. All right. Another interesting thing, and I found this super interesting, Rob, that social media and Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor, any of those stuff just accounted for 6% of the reasons that the person got the job. And that actually doubled from 2018. So we talk about how important social media is and these type of things, but pales in comparison from referrals. Even pales in comparison to referrals from other tradespeople. So that old-fashioned networking and just doing quality work and that type of stuff and referrals, you can't underscore enough how important that is.
Referrals and reputation. I remember when we had Erica on, and that was another one of our favorite episodes when Erica Kitsy came on and did the social media stuff. And I remember her saying that, the Instagram was for your pictures and things like that. And then your Facebook account was kind of who you are, what you've done. The Instagram was more inspiration type stuff, where Facebook was nuts and bolts of your company. So I wonder if that quote, because I thought that number was really low. But then I remember Erica saying, these are just so people know who you are. So I think they'll just get to know who you are, but that I don't think people are using that was the reason that I hired him, was because I saw him on Instagram. that might have been the reason that they got in and got to do the estimate.
Here's what I
That
think
number
about.
just seemed wicked low, I thought.
It does not. Here's why it might account. What it might account for that. I think. I actually think it would be more. It's more important in our industry. I think you're probably spending more money, and it's a permanent fixture in the house and hardwood floors and what have you. I think it certainly depends on how good you are at social media, because talking to Aaron Sheaves, that's his whole business, social media. I mean, he's getting everything off social media, and I talk to a lot of guys that social media is like drives their business now, like 100% that and referrals. So I think that's interesting how low that is. And I don't think it's the case in our industry.
Now that we talked it out a little bit, there's so much of social media that you see for our guys, a lot of before and after. And I mean, some of these before pictures, it looks like cows were left to live on these floors, and then when they're done, they're just spectacular. So I don't think painters are going to put up a lot of before and after. Here the wall was white and now it's blue, but it's not what a wood floor guy does for his before and after. So yeah, maybe that could be another reason that the social media was definitely more important to a floor guy than a painter.
I think 100% it is. And also, products, as you mentioned earlier, products that you use, it scores high up with the painters too. They want to make sure it's a good, well-known product and what have you. So
yeah, quality of that tested off the charts.
I'll give you one more here, is the contractor rating and review websites generated 8% of the landed leads, right? Equal to the number from 2018, which, the Angie List, Angie.com or whatever. They dropped by 35% from 2018.
Wasn't that a shocker?
Well, yes.
That shocked me. 35% in 3 years.
They dropped off.
From 2018 to 2021, that number dropped 35%.
It doesn't shock me at all. And you think about it, everybody swamped. Everybody would double their business if they had more employees, right? So right. Why do you need a referral service if you're so busy right now that you can't keep doing all the work? So I can kind of see where that one's coming from.
Not a good number for Angie, though.
No.
When you sent this over to me, and I saw painters, the head of the email said painters something. I was like, oh man, we're going to do a show on painters that think they can do hardwood floors. So I even though that's not what the show's about, I got to tell you this story. Okay. I go into do an estimate, older couple in town, go in to do an estimate. They want their kitchen sanded, Well, I could tell somebody, it was a new job, and somebody rented an old tip tilt, you know what I mean? And just dribbled his way through the floor and just absolutely destroyed this kitchen floor. I mean, just absolutely destroyed it. So, these jobs are more of a repair job than a sand job, because if I don't,
right,
I don't level it, it's still going to look crappy,
Mm-hmm.
So I think at the time we were charging like $250 a foot. So I think I might have jumped up to like $3.25, and I forget the size, but I'm pretty sure the job was around $700, and I give the lady the estimate. Now all of a sudden she's telling me, because actually on that street that she lived on, I had done 3 other houses over the years, so I guess she went to the neighbors and said, my floor is a disaster. And they all like, oh, call Rob, so I give her my estimate, and she's looking at the estimate, and I could see her hand start shaking,
Yeah.
and she's starting to well up, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it was the worst I had ever seen anybody take one of my estimates. I mean, the lady was crying, right, and shaking.
Yeah.
And she's like, are you sure about this? And I'm like, well, yeah, I know it's a little bit higher than, usual, but there's a lot of repairs that I have to do here and, this, that, and the other thing. And she just kept saying, are you sure? Is this really the number? And, I'm like, wow, this lady is just, yeah, that's first. I'm just thinking, just let me leave, why do this to us? So then I finally said, is everything okay? I got to do a lot of extra work. She goes, yeah, everything's fine. And, when can you do the job? And finally I said, well, what's the matter? And she goes, well, we had a guy who was doing all the painting, and they live in a really old, beautiful old farmhouse, huge. And they had this guy doing all the painting, and they had mentioned the floors, and he said he could do it. Anyways, he charged her $2,400 to sand the kitchen, and he didn't have his own equipment. He went and rented it, but he charged $2,400. And she kind of thought that was where the price was going to be. Now I'm ready to cry.
Well, yeah.
Thinking that I could have charged $2,000 for this.
Did you say, well, that was just for the sandpaper, ma'am? Oh man, that's awful.
$2,400. So I said to her, I go, look, did you pay this guy? Do you owe him any money? Because if you do, don't pay him another dime. I'll pay me what you were going to pay him. So she didn't get it all back, but she got like half of it back. But that's what I thought this show was going to be about. And I was like, oh boy, if I got a story for this show.
So I'd like to say, whether you're a hardwood floor contractor or painter, or whatever, any plumber, small business, it's germane to all of that. You know what I mean? So I think that was an interesting survey, and I think there is something we can extrapolate out of that, use it in our own business, our own lives. And thank you, Rob.
A lot of fun, buddy.
All right, so this has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please do stay tuned for another episode.